So I'm just going to do a quick video on artificially raising discus. Now, I've artificially raised discus quite a few times. I initially started doing it just to prove that I had a breeding pair. I wasn't 100% sure they were male or female, and I think the hardness in my water was too hard for the eggs to actually hatch. So what I did was I put a pair in one of the tanks, and then I basically, as soon as they spawned, took the cone off of them and raised them artificially from there on in. And I'm just going to go through a few basics about the breeding and then show you what I use to actually artificially raise the fry. So for instance, at the top here we've got two blue diamonds. They've spawned many times and they're generally speaking good parents, so I don't tend to guard the cone. As you can see, he is already being quite defensive with me getting near the tank. She's sat on the eggs. They're on day 1, so sort of 30 hours in. She's fanning them gently with her fins, and she's being a good mum. I'm fairly confident they're not going to eat the eggs, and I'm fairly confident they'll turn into wrigglers and then free swimmers all on their own, and they will raise them appropriately. However, directly next to them I've got a pair, fairly new form pair, the male on the left, which is a pigeon snakeskin, and then the pigeon silver, which is the white female behind them, sometimes known as the white butterfly. It was their first spawn, so for them I've taken their cone away, just because I didn't want them to eat the eggs, and I needed to confirm that I had a male and a female, which I can now confirm I have. Now there are other methods. You can cone up the eggs, so if I go down below to another pair of blue diamonds, excuse the mess in the tank, it is tank cleaning day today. I've got male and female there. They're fairly new to breeding, so for their first clutch of eggs, I don't know if you can see them, but I have cone guarded up. You can see the white ones which stand out, which are actually the ones with fungus, so they're not gonna hatch, but there's a fair cluster there of a good 100 fertilised eggs. Now the cone I use, I make it out of wire mesh, like a plastic wire mesh, cable tied together, popped over the top of the cone so they can't barge into it, and then I just use a couple of weights there which are air stones to hold it down. Sometimes in coning up you do get aggressive behaviour from the male. So the male is on the right here, female on the left. They are still showing interest in the eggs, even with the guard on. However, he's becoming a little bit aggressive, so that's just something to watch out for. Over here, same pair as above. They are ready to spawn. They're showing spawning behaviour. But again, I'm going to hold fire and see what happens with these guys. Moving on to the eggs that I took away from the female, you can see all the white unfertilised eggs or fungus eggs, but there are loads of wrigglers there. I don't know if you can see, it's quite hard to focus the camera, but you've got tons of wrigglers all wriggling away. All I've got them in is floating in a grow out tank I have, small air stone on the opposite side to the eggs, just creating a bit of circulation, and a very weak methylene blue solution. Now you can use tank water, however in order to prove that it's a breeding pair, I use deionised water or RODI water to start with, just so I know that the conditions are perfect. They will sometimes hatch in tap water, but in this instance I've used RO water just to prove that I have definitely got a male and female. And if I zoom in here, you can just see the wrigglers there. The original solution they went in was this jug, which is a much stronger solution of meth blue. It's a 2 litre jug, and I use about 1/4 milliliter, so 1 drop, and that's enough just to stop any fungus forming or prevent as much fungus forming as possible, and then allow the eggs to develop into wrigglers. Now the next stage will be artificially raising them. You're going to need to get yourself a grow out system. Now the first 3 days are quite critical away from the parents because they won't be feeding off the slime coat. So what I have here is in a grow out tank with some of the youngsters. I have a white bowl floating with a white air stone. Now in this instance I've gone pretty overkill on the air stone. It's actually a 50mm ball air stone, but you want to slow the current or the flow right down. That's actually too fast. I'm going to slow it down in a minute. And then this is where you're going to raise them for the first 3 to 4 days if you're raising them artificially. It's a white surface. I use a white air stone, so when I put a black object in there, that really shines out to them as the parent, and hopefully then they will move towards that black object for feeding. They're not in here yet, as you've seen. They're still at regular form, but I'll move on to what I use in the mix to feed them, which is what I've found to be extremely successful artificially. Personally, I think artificially raising fry should only really be done once, or to test to see if you've got a pair. The real beauty in keeping and breeding discus really is in the process that they breed in. I think it is absolutely amazing the way they swarm around the parent and eat off the slime coat. I think that's one of the most beautiful things and one of the main reasons why I breed. However, with the artificial raising, you need to give them something to replace that parent slime coat during the first 3 to 4 days. After that, they should be fairly good on baby brine shrimp. Now, my formula is completely different to most people's, but I've tried and tested many things, and this one works for me time after time again and gets them to a great size within the first 3 days. So the ingredients I use, like many others, a standard egg, hard boiled, and then you peel off the white and the shell and just use the egg yolk. Then you can buy on Amazon or any health food store kelp powder. I've got a kilo of it here. It's a very fine powder, which is obviously a sea plant, kelp, and then obviously the good old reliable spirulina. Now you want to use it very sparingly, not much at all, but it's a very, very fine powder which is perfect for fry or baby fish. Again, Amazon, I think these each are by kilo bags because I go through quite a bit. I make my own beef heart mix, which they go into, but I think they're about £8 a bag. Now the secret ingredient I use is a dog supplement, which is green lip mussel powder. Very, very fine powder, it's almost like a dust. If you mix that in to your fry powder, you will see huge results. It's massive attractant quality, so it really does increase the fish's ability to locate the food. It also stops some of the egg fouling up the water, I've found, so it prevents the fouling that you find by using it just in egg mix on its own. Then some of the high street brands, you've got the Hikari Tropical First Bites, love that stuff. Liquefy, number 1, which is from Interpet, again I use a couple of drops of that. So this is the mixture once it's done. It's like a clay paste. You want it to be a very thick but sticky formula. I use literally a pinprick of Liquefy, so 2 drops, very small amount, 1/4 teaspoon of each of these 3, and about half a pack of this. Now you won't need half a pack, but this is just the quantities I mix it up in. Average fry batch is somewhere between 100 to 200 fry, so you'll probably get away with much less. Once the egg's hard boiled, take the yolk out, mix up all these ingredients together and you'll get this green paste. Be sparingly on the spirulina. It is a strong ingredient. It is also extremely high in protein, but it does colour it green. You then, as mentioned earlier, need a dark object for them to actually feed off of, because this object is what's replacing the parent. Effectively, it's a surrogate parent, or an artificial parent. I use just a magnetised glass cleaner. Put one side, obviously this side, in the white bowl, the other side on the outside holds it on, and then you can just pop it off whenever you need to replace it. Make sure you clean it thoroughly between changes, and the amount you've got on there now is actually more than enough. I always say use 10% of what you think you need. Worst thing you could do when artificially raising fry is to overfeed. You're just going to basically create a horrific water quality conditions. You're going to be continually making water changes throughout the day. I feed this 4 times a day, 2 water changes a day. Try not to move them as much as possible, but I do use a turkey baster when necessary. And in our next video, I will show you the fry eating and the next stage of the process.